All right. We are live on Facebook. We're recording here on Zoom. Russ Parker just joined us. Thank you. It's good to see some familiar names. And so I am really excited to have everybody here tonight. I just want to say a couple things before we get started. We recently changed the name of our program from Parkinson's Regeneration Training, which is still an actual company and brand, Parkinson's Empowerment Training, because empowerment is so important for all of us, Parkinson's or not. You know, there's a lot going on in the world right now. We can easily get down. The disconnect for a lot of people is very difficult. I'm sure, Melissa, you run into this, but I know how you are. And I know you bring people together. And that's one of the things that's beautiful about technology is we can use this to bring people together. And so it's a different time these past 12 months, 10 months or whatever, but we're going to forge ahead. We're going to learn some cool stuff tonight. I'm so excited. So empowerment is something I've been thinking a lot. It's, a little bit of shameless self-promotion. I'm sorry, but I guess I can. Is Melissa, actually, I'll introduce you in a minute, but she wrote a beautiful piece, very inspirational for my next book, which comes out it's about 3 weeks from now, Parkinson's Empowerment Training. And one of your fighters wrote a beautiful piece too. So the book is about a third stories of inspiration, maybe half, about half, and the rest is deeper education. So look for that, folks. So without further ado, there is one more thing. Next week, the 20th, at 7:30 p.m., just like right now, Eastern time, I will be doing a webinar on the many roles of dopamine. Dopamine is fascinating. I've been studying it in depth since around the 1st of August. There's a really good book called The Molecule of More. And I learned about it from Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's at Stanford. That's not too far from you, is it? Melissa, Stanford?
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah.
Just a few hours. So.
And so it's a really good book. We're going to kind of talk about some of the things in that book and some other research on Wednesday night next week. So I hope you'll be able to, look for a posting coming up tomorrow so you can sign up for that. And that's it. I don't have a lot to say tonight. And I will just say one more thing, not to be diminishing anyone or political, because I won't go down that road. But I will say that COVID is real. It's a thing. I had it. Now, it was really, really, really hard to get through it. There's a lot of pain. I'm still, my eyes are really weird. I look funny tonight, but that's nothing new. But it is the lingering effects are really strange, and I'm really surprised how I'm affected. So all I want to just add to this is it's not a hoax. Be safe. It's real. And, just be kind to others and respectful of others, because I can tell you right now, you don't want to get it. And if you do, I hope you don't have it as bad as some people get it. So without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest. I met her in Alameda, California in August of 2018. And when she showed up, she had, about 5 people with you, I think?
4, yeah.
4, okay. We had the best time for 2 days. What Melissa brought to the workshop, heart-wise, spirit-wise, and knowledge, and her fighters, it was a game changer. Without you there, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as much fun or good. And so tonight, the subject tonight is hope is in your corner. And when I think about this and knowing Melissa as I know her, there's nobody better to talk about this. She'll bring out the best in everybody. She brings it out in me. She brings it out in her fighters. So I want to introduce and turn this over to my special guest, Melissa Tafoya. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm honored. That was quite an introduction. The Hope in Your Corner really epitomizes community, our Parkinson's community, and Carl really epitomizes that and how he brings us together. I think we can all agree on that for the regulars that are here. So I think that really, it brings together like-minded people in our community. And one of the big topics within Hope that I wanted to talk about and present some slides, some that some of you are familiar with, about how we bring our group of Rocksteady Boxers together, is who do we include in our circle of care and concern? So oftentimes we're talking about people with Parkinson's and their network of support, right? But often the person living with Parkinson's doesn't realize what they themselves have to offer everybody else. Like, you living with Parkinson's, you are the expert, right? And there are individual people with Parkinson's living their own expert lives. And the more we bring these experts together, the magic happens. So when I talk about, again, circle of care and who should you care about, you're already here in one of the greatest support groups, Carl's Circle. But if you haven't found this or haven't committed to something like this on a regular basis, that's what I want to talk about, is finding your group that helps you thrive. And family does that, but getting outside of the family and finding new people within an extended connection of Parkinson's. Because when you start to do that, you can lean on each other in the most beautiful ways. And so I'm going to share a few examples of that in a moment, but how we often think about leaning on each other, not only what we get from somebody else, but what we have to offer as inspiration. In talking to one of my boxers recently, she was talking about how COVID and the pandemic has been so frightening, right? She's healthy, but she's doing everything she can to getting sick. And so she's feeling that by being isolated and doing Zoom, it is, causing some disparity here of what she's used to getting in a physical regimen and connection with everybody. But then she hops on Zoom or maybe in the park and she sees some of her fighters, some of her fellow comrades, and they lift her up and she sees how hard they're trying. And some of them are having to take 10 times the amount of effort to get there than her. And she takes a step back and says, wait a minute, what am I complaining about? Like, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And so again, who can you put yourself into or pour yourself into too and lift up? It takes a village. So with that concept, a couple slides I just want to share in regards to how we did this when we could get together and how we'll continue to do that. One of the ways in our group we'll do that is something that you're probably familiar with, a flash mob, like a planned event that nobody else knows about except your group, that you're going to show up at a certain time and you're going to do something kind of wild, right? To get some attention, usually positive attention. And so our group became notorious for doing like chants or hakas, or something loud and bold, but very positive. And the idea of this was not to show off. The idea was to actually, whatever event we went to, a conference or a workshop, it was to kind of, in an unconventional way, introduce ourselves, make friends, and get other people to jump in and do it with us. So I'm going to show you a video in a moment. I'm going to show you some of our group activities in the gym to show how people are getting better because they are lifting each other up, okay? When we're done with that, I want to actually teach you one of the hakas, and I want to get loud together because I consider you extended fight family members, right? And we're bringing you in and we're working together. This is no recruitment like you're signing up for anything, but it's just me saying that, with a big open heart, we can't do this alone. And doing this together tonight really matters. So if you're open to seeing a few slides and then trying a haka with me, no one else can hear you, right? We're just going to get loud and have some fun.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just hear you. So one of the things I meant, I'm sorry I'm interrupting for a second, but I had it right here in front of me in my notes, and COVID brain made me skip a couple lines. You're a Rocksteady boxing coach extraordinaire. You're a personal trainer. You're just a human extraordinaire is a new thing I just decided to call you. So people know that you are working with the Parkinson's population. Rocksteady is an amazing program. I would love it if you want to talk about that tonight. Please do. Please.
I get what has been introduced and what hasn't, so I don't want to make. I want to make sure.
It's all yours. You can talk about anything you want. It's never about me. It's about we. So with that said, I think you should be able to share your screen if you want to give it a try.
That out here.
I set it up so panelists can share, and you should be able to.
Here we go. Great. Okay, I'm going to start my slides first, and then I have a little mini movie that I'll show you guys.
Perfect. I'm going to mute myself because
okay.
I think my dogs are going to be making some noise, and I'll unmute when needed. So it's all yours.
Okay,
thank you. All right.
All right. So as Carl said, I own and am the head coach of Rocksteady Boxing Sacramento. As a private trainer, my brand is multidimensional training. The next slide will show one of our hakas at a Parkinson's conference locally and how we get loud. That's an example.
And you should be, when you're sparring, I mean, you should be having a threat that you have to bring your hand back.
Here's an example of how our champs work together. Timing, boxing, leaning on each other. Here's another example.
Up and over to the right. Keep those high knees. Up and over to the left.
Teamwork.
Up and over to the right.
Pacing.
Up and over to the left. Up and over to the right.
Finding a speed that everybody can do
up
together.
Up and over to the left. Up and over to the right.
And then more partner drills. Different ages.
Russ, we got to do all this.
You know, they feed off each other. They want to see each other succeed more than even themselves.
Right there. Turn, Onelia. Turn.
I mean, look at this pair right here, the Tiny
go.
Terror and Overdrive. So that gives you an example of how we work together. And then the last thing that I wanted to share, let me stop sharing this and start over here. I'm not sure how to do it a different way. Let me see. I'm trying to find my little video here. Well, shoot.
No problema.
Maybe I need to open that first. Bear with me just a second. What it is, I'll preface it. It's our open mic night. We had our very first open mic night on Zoom, and it turned out pretty darn good. So I want to see if I can share that with you guys really quick. Try that again. Here we go. I'm learning too as I go. And all I'm going to do is just skip through little pieces, but show you that we started to learn so much about one another. And we had so many musicians in our group. And a lot of them would talk about what they couldn't do anymore. And most of us would say, get out of town. I don't even have a musical like note in my body that I could do anything. If you can strum a chord on a guitar, we want to hear, like, let's just like act like we're getting around the campfire and playing some tunes and have some fun and see what happens. So we had folks practice. Some of them did some previous recorded stuff, but most of it's live. And I'm just going to show you a couple of pieces of how they shared themselves with one another and lifted each other up. And you're going to recognize the MC there, Carl. See if you can
piece
see.
to
Mike Matani.
To share.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember him.
This is Linda, Superwoman we call her, and she's playing with her.
Do I have to?
Sorry, I'm trying to get it to play right in the middle so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. She's playing with her cello instructor. Sound of Silence, Simon and Garfunkel. And then I'll skip through.
It's pretty convenient, so it's called Music Minus
This
One.
is Bruce and Susan and her husband Larry. They're volunteers in our program. So they did a little duet.
Type of song for a person with Parkinson's to sing.
Greg on the left, Go Big, has Parkinson's.
Because Melissa has taught him the fighting spirit, he has chosen this song.
His wife,
possible songs
Jody,
that he's going to sing. So bear with us. And this is the handsome butcher.
I love that.
Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4. 7
Lots upon gate. 7 gates about town. In the town there lives a butcher, and his name is Handsome John Brown. In the town there lives a butcher, and his name is Handsome John Brown. John Brown's boots are called so fine. John
So
Brown's
he chose to challenge himself, didn't he? And then their duet.
Sundays I caught him once, he was looking my undies. He ain't too sharp, but he gets things done. Drinks
Wow.
his beer like it's oxygen. He's my baby and I'm his honey. Never gonna let him go. In spite of ourselves, we're in bed sitting on a rainbow. Against all odds, and we're the big dog prize. We're gonna spike our nose right
And
on.
last but not least, let's see if we can get Fran in here.
I
this is
still
Mike,
use
hang
it,
on.
but like you can hear that it's
Mike
tuned
starts
to
to
a
explain
different,
his guitars and what he can play on them.
tuning.
Wow.
And this is
Sharing pieces of his heart with us. And let me see if I can back up to Fran really quick.
Oh, tune is called "Hold Me Blues."
Her favorite
And,
performer, Memphis
and
Minnie.
I hope you
Blues.
like it. Now I'm gonna back up a bit, so I'm not. The judge says, "Franny, how come you mistreat your man?" I said, "Judge, you know you ain't no woman, and you sure can't understand."
You can
'cause
tear
if
it
you
up.
know me, whisper, baby, oh, what a thrill.
So those were just some examples of some of our fighters just sharing themselves with each other, raw, candid and real. And
I love it.
it's important. So we're trying to find unconventional ways like that to get together, to be together, and to be where we are, right? So much of the time we live in the past. I used to be able to do this. I used to be doing that. What can we celebrate now? And what was so funny is most of the folks in there were the ones that were afraid to reveal what they're doing now. And the rest of us, our jaws are dropped. I can't believe, that this is you now. This is amazing. But their mind had been in the past. So we're trying to bring out all of that to celebrate because it matters. And how this ties into Hope in Your Corner today is another concept of just mindfulness. We hear that a lot today, but what does that mean besides sitting and meditating? How do we implement that into action, right? How do we celebrate what's right in front of us? And a lot of the time, it is working with our thoughts in that moment. I'm going to abandon what I knew or what I perceived as me then. I'm going to abandon worrying about the future, even 2 minutes from now. And I'm going to look right here in whatever I'm working with and be there at my fullest, whether I'm on or off in my medication, whether or not, it's that moment that we'll never get back. So I think this open mic helped really epitomize that for a lot of our guys, and that's what we continue to try to do. So that was just an example of group, and so I'm going to keep kind of jabbering about how things kind of
go for it.
flow, but interrupt me anytime if folks have questions or slow down, Melissa, what are you talking about? Let me know. I'm a very informal. I love to just communicate and have a conversation, so no big deal.
Yeah, I meant to say in the beginning another thing too, which is if people have questions, throw them in the chat box. And if we don't get to it right away, we will get to it. I do have one comment, 2 comments actually.
Sure.
Here and now, being here in the now is something I'm finally learning about.
Right.
Personally. And it's part of it is experiencing it, but the other part is the research behind it and the research about what's happening in the brain with the chemicals that cause you to be here and now. And it's actually, I'll talk a little bit about it next week at my webinar about dopamine, because dopamine drives us to things as a driver, a goal, motivator, right? It does a lot of other stuff too. But once you ever have the situation where you reach a goal or you accomplish something and then you're kind of left feeling empty. And so the here and now circuits and the here and now chemicals, you can manifest those. You just have to think about it. And it
That's
really
exactly
it involves focus. It's that simple. Simple doesn't always mean easy.
No.
But the other thing too, I want to say, without going on too much, is there's a really, really good book that the fact that you're doing music with people, I think, is really powerful. It's a really important. It's another way of increasing brain activity, and the activity includes some of these chemicals that make us feel good. It could be a little dopamine, could be oxytocin, serotonin, different things. But if anyone's interested, just know that this book is the single best book on music and the brain that I've ever had. It's a little pricey, like $50 on Amazon or something. But the Handbook of Neurologic Music Therapy, it's like a textbook. It's not like you read it. You study it like you would study something for a college course. But it really goes into explaining for people like me who have to know. Otherwise, I don't function right if I don't know the right stuff, and then I can put it together and do better. Really good book. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No,
to.
that ties in beautifully. I'm hoping we can just kind of bounce off of each other that way. It's great. But yeah, there's so much importance in utilizing sound, music, but being present with it. Absolutely. How do we invigorate that energy in every day? How are we excited for this moment? So one way to do that, is obviously through exercise. And I had promised to teach you that haka. So I'd like to do that right now. And again, I'm the one that's going to be looking like the silly one. And I'm happy to do that in front of all of you guys. You're at home, you're behind the camera, you can have your camera off, and you're muted, but just have a little fun with me. I'm going to show you what I need you to do cadence wise. So everyone's going to need to make sound on their own end. And then it'll be a call and response. I'll say the line, you'll repeat it, and I'll make a little gesture, an easy one if you want to do that too. It brings out a little more power. Right? It gives a little more emphasis. It kind of gets our whole system into it. So if you want to try it with me, I totally welcome that, especially as you're into the evening and you might be getting a little sleepy. This is going to wake you up. So let's go ahead and sit back into our hips. If you're sitting on the chair, just sit on the edge of your chair so you can lift your chest, you can really kind of bounce in your seat. But if you can have a stand and sit back in those hips, you're going to feel even better. So let's start with just clapping here, and we're going to breathe out, kind of grunt. And you're going to keep doing this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Who we gonna fight? Parkinson's with all our might. Punch it, defeat it, know that we can beat it. Left, right, champs will win the fight. 1, 2, 1, 2 with rock steady pride. Champions, all on our sides. We'll do it one more time because you know what to do, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, who we gonna fight? Parkinson's with all our might. Punch it, defeat it, know that we can beat it. Left, right, champs will win the fight. 1, 2, 1, 2 with rock steady pride. Champions, all on our side. If you want, just go nuts. Woo! Start to feel alive again, right? Take that moment. Take that high that you get. Like, I'm feeling better than I felt in the last 10 minutes right now, right? That's
Totally.
everything. That matters. So just another example, don't be afraid to be silly. You know what I'm saying? Like we were talking about before COVID and the shutdown about going to karaoke and being silly, getting a private room. We're like, well, shoot, we can do that on Zoom anytime and really not be as cautious because, it's just the fight family. No strangers can hear us, But again, another way of incorporating that togetherness, that energy, let's light up our brains, but really light up the moment. That's really important. So again, just kind of segueing into the relevance there. We'll get into some more structure in regards to exercise too. But again, I'm all about having fun while using, proven science. It can be done. It doesn't have to be so serious all the time. So that's my number one thing. How do we work with our mind, mental health? How do we stay fresh in that moment, and how do we lift each other up? So these are examples of that. And a lot of the things that I see one-on-one with a lot of my private clients and then together in our groups is that anxiety level rise for different reasons. The common thread, you see it in every human being that's walking around right now, is that we're overwhelmed with stuff. Our mind is just overflowing with stuff, and trying to just stay focused on one or two things is incredibly hard. So a lot of the time I'll see our guys who once had a decent gait or a decent arm swing, their mind starts snowballing and the festination can happen, or the lack of the arm swing, the rigidity happens, and they just stiffen up and freeze, right?
Yep.
And some of that is happening more now than it used to. And so we start talking about what's going on in our mind. Are we, besides stopping and taking a breath, that's a pretty familiar, resolve for the first measure of relaxation. What's going on to cause that, and the frequency with which that's happening? For a lot of people, it's starting from the moment they wake up now to the point of going to bed. And how do we change it or flip that cycle? So a lot of the times we just talk about simple things as far as breath work, sitting up in bed, taking a moment to just move the body and breathe and tell ourselves, okay, I'm going to give myself a chance today. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do what I can do one step at a time. So when I'm working individually with people, a lot of times we talk about we're constantly boxing, we're in our fighting stance. Some people get a combination or a movement quicker than others, and the ones that aren't picking it up sometimes think that they need to look like the person next to them. A lot of times people are wondering, how does group exercise work, and how do people work at their own level besides being assessed for that level? How do they keep up and stay motivated and not feel derailed, right? So we talk about really thinking about 3 things in any exercise, breaking it down. And if the 3 things that we focus on are too much, then take it down to 2 things, or take it down to 1 thing, and just build it back up or bring it back down, So a good example, you're feeling overwhelmed like that and you're having trouble walking. Sometimes I just ask my folks to stand hip width apart or sit on the edge of their chair, depending on what they're comfortable with, and start to turn their hips and swing their arms. Because so much of what's required in everyday movement besides walking is just that hip rotation, right? We try to just think about that arm swing going back. And I see this so much, right? And we're trying to get those elbows back. There's all these fancy things you can do, but honestly, staying in the moment and thinking, okay, I'm going to watch one arm go back and I'm going to watch the other go back.
See, that's a good idea.
It's just simple.
I love
see
that.
People walking around disconnected from what their limbs are doing. Swing your arms. Okay. But they have no idea what they're doing. And I don't mean people with Parkinson's. I mean just Joe Blow down the street, mindful walking even. So my client, Warren, we call him the Big Hurt because his last name is Hurt. He's working so hard on this. I'm so proud of him. And we focus on turning the hips, making big arm swings. But 9 out of 10 times, he thinks he's got it and he'll start speeding it up and he loses it. It goes. And I said, enjoy the process, So slow it down, look at your arms, try it for a second, guys. Try turning, kind of working the vestibular system, because again, you've got to turn that head. You've got to make eye contact with that movement, following your hand one direction and the other. I'm turning to look at each hand going back. You might get a little vertigo, so come back and look forward again, but just that mindfulness, right? Sometimes that's enough to get you going. So I'm just saying simple, what seems obvious, but the obvious, just take it down a notch and actually look at what you're doing, feel what you're doing. Simple, but not simple, right? That makes a big difference for a lot of our guys. Another thing that helps a lot of them, seated or standing, is weight shift, right? We're shifting our weight side to side. We're going to get into a little boxing trick in a little bit, but boxing requires a lot of weight shift, and that's one of my real beliefs as far as getting the body moving and balance, is understanding where you are in space, right? So just that weight shift alone and then swinging those arms sometimes can get us out of a stressful situation. So again, mindful movements, it's not super tricky, but it takes time to just slow down and check ourselves. So that, is the next piece.
So, just one real quick thing here. When you're turning the head like that, you're activating vestibular and visual too, actually, because your eyes are having to, even if they're not moving, they're looking at different things. Your head's turning. So, the science, if we go into, I'm a geek. So if you go into the scientific part of it, we know that that's good for the brain, but it's a great, I'm going to try this tomorrow with people. I need to try this whole head turning thing, even just standing and weight shift.
We'll do that. You can make propeller arms, same thing. Wherever the arms move, you go, right? And then not for too long, because folks do tend to get a little disoriented at times. But again, when you incorporate your entire 360 senses, turning, moving, looking, feeling, all of them start to incorporate again. We're so disconnected in all of that. That's where movements like Tai Chi are so helpful, because they're slow and exaggerated. And if you're not focusing on all of that, you're going to fall down or you're going to lose the piece, right? So you're right. Eyes, we're going to be going over a couple techniques that way today too. If you guys have like a lacrosse ball or tennis ball, it might be a good time for me to actually segue into this little piece. Perfect. So, I was talking about boxing, but we don't necessarily have to adapt this for boxing. I'm going to change my camera angle and show you two ways of working on some visual tricks along with weight shift. Okay. When I was talking about the arm swings and seeing people really just work out here, right? They're not turning their hips. I see so much rigidity in the arms. I don't see people get full extension almost 100% of the time. We're constantly slowing down and making mindful movements. It's not that they can't, it's a lot of the times they've forgotten how because of the stiffness. So this I like a lot. I call it a catch and push, but you can just stand hip width apart. If we talk about that weight shift, we talk about turning the hips, and we're just keeping our elbows tucked in, okay? This is a really good start to start to hammer out a punch. Now, what I'm gonna ask you to do with the ball though, the ball has to stay at arm's length away from you. You can bring an empty hand to your face, but the actual ball needs, okay? And you see the rotation I'm doing? That forces you through the hip to throw a punch, okay? But even better than throwing a punch is just getting that extension. And then eye tracking, your eyes are staying fixated on that ball that's away from you. The ball never comes to your face, right? Your empty hand does. So when you're looking at that ball, can you tell me what you see in your peripheral vision, meaning the side, and empty hand? So you've got two things going on. You're staying as steady as you can looking at the ball, but you are mindful that you have that empty hand in your peripheral. That starts to open up a whole new avenue of your sensory awareness, right? The shifting gives you a cadence, but for some folks, that's too much. They're going, whoa, I'm stuck. Well, maybe that was more than three things. Let's bring it down to maybe 1 to 2 things. Can we stop rotating for a second and just work on hands? Can we think about hammering out one elbow in full extension and then the other? And then if that's working, we'll bring the second piece to it, looking at the ball the entire time. And possibly the third one, the peripheral vision. That gets down. People are like, that's pretty easy. I can hot dog that. Then start to rotate the hips. So you could replace, say, looking at the peripheral vision with the hip rotation, and you're thinking of hips, ball, and full extension for your 3 things. Do you see how you're constantly channeling your mind as you're focusing on this? If you do that, what else can you think about? I can't think about much more. I don't know about you, but that's a lot, right? but you're constantly training your brain about what's right here. It's
Yeah.
just a simple tool, but it
That's-
makes a difference. It's stimulating, and
That's
it'll
genius.
So at any rate,
I've told people you're a genius, and you are.
no, I watch others. I'm like you. I get
Yeah, I
ideas
know,
from
but
other people, but then I see how it affects the people I work with. So you
it's really
care
great.
about the folks. They give you the data, right? And then from the data, you can make these experiments and see what works. And so what I tell my folks is, you start to build a library based on their needs, and then you start to sprinkle it through a class so they all feel fulfilled. That you're specifically doing something that each one knows that they need and that they like. And then it's all about them, right?
Yes.
So I constantly say this, I'm nothing without my people. I am nothing without the Parkinson's community, because that's where I have everything, and that's where I have the purpose to give. They have given me everything. So I can't never take any credit for that, but thank you. Tonight's a great example of how we can share and work together.
Yeah,
So
I really love
that's a
that.
great example. Yeah.
It's funny because in all the travels I've done in teaching, and Russell and Allison, was so cool, especially when Allison was with me, when I was with you. And that was a prime example of, we come in, we teach stuff, teach concepts, demonstrate something, and then go. And you all come up with I have so much video of that workshop.
That's so fun.
And I was watching some the other day, watching you and some other people. It's just, I love it because, I kind of joke. Well, people think I'm joking. I'm not joking. It's true. On Saturday mornings when I say, tomorrow night when we leave, I promise I'll learn more than any of you. It's true. I mean, it's like, I feel it's true.
Really embarrassing, but somebody's knocking on my door. I'm giving a presentation on Zoom. I'm sorry. It's a bad time.
No
It
problem.
only happens when I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, that's fine. So that's a great example. I think I might have had one original idea in my whole book or anything I deliver, because everything comes from other people, and then if we get creative, we can modify a little or put 2 or 3 ideas together. Oh, let's try that with this and this with that. And
I have to let them know I'm so
oh,
sorry.
yeah, sure. No problem. So people, as you can see, Melissa is awesome. And she's
You can come back in an
just
hour.
does such a great job. And I'll go off on a slight tangent just for a second. And I mean this, hear me out, because this is a compliment. Yeah, Russ, I'll read that in a second. So when I first was looking at Rocksteady and some other programs, I was thinking, geez, I don't know. I just don't know how good it is. But what I learned very quickly when I started traveling and getting out there are many things that make a lot of programs good. Number one is, if people like it and they're doing it, that's great. If you get a coach like you, who gets creative, brings out the best, you make it good for them. That's key. And, I think it's real important for people to do what they like to do, but also realize that when you're doing what you like, you can probably make it really good. You can make it better somehow. And I just see you as making like everything better. It's awesome. I love it.
Well, I agree with you. It's what you make of it for anything. And I am really grateful to be able to have Rocksteady as a platform to be able to serve others. And because I love to box, that's really where it started. I found myself and my self journey through it. So the fact that now I can pour myself into something like that to help somebody else, that's everything. So I'm so grateful. And we all have our own stories, and that's the thing. So thank you. I do take that as a compliment. I have some Girl Scouts outside, and I felt so bad. That's why I wanted to let them know, if you come back in an hour, I'd be happy to buy cookies or,
That's great.
That time of year. So any questions so far about those movements and mindfulness? We constantly collaborate in our fight family and also independently with people such as meditation teachers. So we do some mindfulness meditation sessions with a local meditation group here in Sacramento. The gentleman who spearheads that has worked through pain management, through Kaiser Permanente, and then retreats with doctors. So he's gotten to know our champs over the years, and he started to really cater some of these sessions specifically to what is happening in their lives. And so we have a session coming up to talk more about what pandemic has been like, and just the tumultuous times and staying present. So just offering different things, not expecting everybody to take to it, but if you give people, like you said, an opportunity to find what they like, that's the whole thing, feeling accepted.
Totally. And normally I wouldn't do this, but I want to do this because we're on Facebook Live too, and we have some viewers there, so they can't see the comments or the chat.
Okay.
Russ Parker chimed in here with something really cool. He says, so another arm swing trick, walk with only letting your arm swing whatever amount happens naturally. Observe the arm swing, hip motion, and gradually increase amplitude of your arm swing and hip rotation. He said he used this trick a few days ago on a walk. And I think that's great, because that's actually gives you a baseline of where you started versus
exactly
where you want to set your goal at, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's cool. For us. And I got caught up, and I saw his webinar night before last, and just blown away by all of his exercises and all of his skill set. I mean, you're constantly coming up with new stuff, Russ, and it's just
great. One
of these days we're going to get together in person. I just can't wait, and we're just
we will.
It'll be so fun. But in the meantime, I'm just incredibly inspired. So in regards to movement that way and weight shift, another thing that I was really just motivated or compelled to try with my guys over the years is something that overlaps something that Russ also showed in his webinar, and that was a suitcase carry. The other thing that I like to do with that is pair that with something quick and loose or another direction. So if you guys have some kind of duffel bag or a light suitcase or a briefcase or something around, grab it. I'm going to demo something with it, but I'm also going to demo something with something I talked about in the last regeneration training, was those Elite Vision sticks. And I'm not hired by Franco at all, but if you Google Elite Vision sticks, you'll find what I'm talking about. But they offer different verbiage like motivational words, the Stroop test, which I'm going to show today, and other numbers and sequences to work for visual drills. Okay. And they were invented for elite athletes. Well, people with Parkinson's, in my eyes, are the elite, because they're willing to take on anything and everything and superhuman power, in my eyes. So these have worked really well for our guys, but how we do it, instead of me asking for folks to buy these, we just use what we have around the house, like an index card and some colored markers, for goodness sake, right? Like something accessible. So what I'm going to ask, if you do have something great, but this is something you can try at another time, I put on an index card the primary colors, but do you notice that I wrote them in the wrong colors? So yellow is blue, red is yellow, and blue is red here. So what I want you to do, try this on your own time, or if you happen to have some time to put this together, do it with me. But I've got this little duffel bag here, and I've got this card. And I'm going to think about a couple things with this. I'm going to think about holding the card in my left hand. I'm right-handed, so my non-dominant hand. And I'm just going to keep it at about eye level the entire time. And I'm going to take the duffel bag, and I'm going to do a little suitcase deadlift. And I can do that from a chair. In other words, it's like a squat, but I'm going to hinge and sit down and then stand up, squeeze my glutes. I'll do that 3 times. And I'm going to let my hand tilt. My eye follows my hand, or the 3 colors, for those 3 times. So that's the beginning. We can progress it in a moment, but we'll start with 2 things. The suitcase deadlift to stand 3 times. Keeping my shoulders back, a nice proud chest, I'm going to walk slowly forward, looking at the card, and if I can, backwards. Now, that's pretty easy. When you get back to your seat or without the seat, you'll do 3 more. But this time, as you're doing this and the walk, you're going to read those colors, but not by the label yellow, red, and blue, but by the color they're written with. So now I'm going to say blue, yellow, red as I'm walking, and then blue, yellow, red again. Okay, something
Mhm.
like that for maybe a minute's worth of work. That would be, man, that's a lot. That really makes me nervous. Take it down to just carry, or
Mhm.
the sit to stand, whatever works, keeping your arm extended, but your eyes are focused in the right plane the entire time. Then from there, try reading it, be okay with making mistakes, because that's how we get better, and take
True.
it in
Yeah.
pieces and then put it back together again. So when we do one side like that, and we're really serious and we're really stiff intentionally, right? So we preserve the integrity of our trunk. Then we want to do something lighter, a little more calorie burning, more cardio, and fun. So I like to do a half jack, which just means I sit back on my hips. And if I worked my right side, then that right arm is going to swing and that right leg.
Oh,
And the left side is my time under tension. I'm sitting
ah,
down right here.
nice.
Okay? We could do that in a chair as well. But again, maybe half the time, 30 seconds versus a minute, because a minute for slower work. So something along those levels. And then you would switch side and do your left side. You could repeat it as many times as you want to, and that could even work out as a snap, kind of like Russ was talking about. But just things, again, that require you to be in the moment. You can't think about anything else, because you're going to go down if you do. You need, all your senses are about you, and it's that important, staying that engaged. So that's another example. We actually did that in our Zoom class this morning, and it was really neat to see everybody have their gear and be ready. They get a little list
Yeah.
before class, and
That's a great one. Everything you just did is really, it's simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. But it's
No.
great, because even if you make mistakes, you still have activity happening, and that's half the battle. Get the brain fired up.
That's right. And, I started thinking people are getting excited. They're finding more hope. The vaccine here is on the horizon for people to get. They're starting to look at a future of seeing people and traveling down the road. Well, what I think about is when we go to the airport, we either have to take on our phone or we have the printout and we're trying to read it and we're trying to take our carry-on baggage and we're distracted and people are bumping into each other. They're not aware of what they're doing. This gets you built in, ready to not only have good posture and not slump, but you're working the peripheral, you're aware of everything while you're still zeroing in. And I think it's tools for everyday life, but empowerment to get your life back. So
totally. And the other thing too is like these types of things, like you just said it. The only thing I want to add is, like I say with the people I work with, is the things you do with me or people do with you, we want them to benefit. You're with me now, but when you leave and you go out the door, our intention is to help you deal with all that stuff better. So like what you just said is perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, it's right. The gate, the airport, the luggage, the thing, or you're in a grocery store, you got a cart, you look at what do I have to get?
Right.
In that aisle over there. Oh, this over. Yeah. I mean, this is everyday life training.
That's exactly right. And if you feel that purpose, you're more compelled to keep practicing, aren't you? Instead of like, oh, well, this is a fun task. I don't know where it's going. Why would you do it? But when it has purpose and it also makes you feel good or stronger, then my goodness, that's the whole point, is to empower.
It's not for nothing.
No,
it's for something.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
We could go the whole science road, but just real quick, I mean, that brain activity stimulating these synapses, what helps to get neurons to wire together because they're firing together. And when you develop this, and I'm following Stanford very closely right now because the Huberman lab at Stanford is doing some really super cool work on neuroplasticity. And I already had a webinar on that. So if anyone wants it, just let me know and I'll send you the link. But this is like real life stuff. Your brain is moldable, it's trainable. So when you work with Melissa, you work on this stuff, you work with me, or just by yourself doing this stuff, you'll realize benefits and activities of daily living. And that's the whole idea. Reduce falls, reduce fall risk, move better. And then what does that lead to? And you just said it, empowerment. Oh, I did it better.
Right.
That's never going to make anyone feel worse. They'll only feel better.
Right. And you have all the tools in your arsenal to be successful. Like if we can continue to cultivate that, that people already have what it takes, they just maybe don't know how yet, or have forgotten some ways to achieve that. And all we're trying to do is recircuit the brain to find those pieces and create new ones and bridge them together. It's really, people don't realize that they already have it. It's nothing that really you and I did except for help spark something again. That's how I feel, is that we're bringing other ideas to the table and other methods, but they already have it within them. And if they really believe it's already there, that's half of it. If you can do all this training and it technically can do exactly what it's meant to do, but if you don't believe it, you don't think that you're entitled to have it, or you don't believe that it will last, then it probably won't, right? You have to 100% believe that what you're putting in is what you're going to get out of it. Because if you don't, you're not going to keep investing on that nature, right? It's that constant.
Totally. It's actually, I'm sorry to bring this up, but it's chapter one of the new book is about, the title is Hope, Empowerment, and Belief.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason is because, and I didn't ever make, like I said, I don't make stuff up. I learn from other people, and I should have you write that chapter, because the way you say it's better than I said it. But, hope, when you realize hope, you start to feel empowered. And when you feel empowered, you believe, or maybe the belief leads to empowerment. There's a lot of interchangeability between all those, like all hope and belief lead to, or I'm sorry, belief and empowerment lead to more hope, which leads to the others, which leads to back and forth and back and forth. But the three of those things work together.
I think that's why, so much of the time things are developed as far as athletics and exercise for athletes, and then they trickle down to everybody else. But if you really think about it, all of that is designed for humans. But the most important part of this belief, hope, and empowerment isn't that a champion's mindset? Isn't that what it takes to win? And we don't care about sports in our lives as winning as that kind of a champion, but that drive to keep going, that you keep losing and losing, but one day you're going to win, and one day you really believe that you are going to be the next title belt wearing champion of the world, whatever. But you have to believe that deeply, that you may not become some superhero, but by God, you're going to get up and you're going to walk and possibly pick up your grandchild. And you know what? That's a superhero in itself, right? Mm-hmm. That's the champ that you're after. But you have to want, not only want it, you got to believe it. So that mindfulness and that training in itself, I think, is so fundamental. So tying it all together, I'm going to stop bringing in other exercises and things, because, we could do that all day. But I think really taking these pieces and realizing, okay, you're not alone. You don't have to do this alone. That doesn't mean that it's just you and your caregiver or your general pipeline. There are all of us out here. I mean, how many different countries are chiming in right now? We're all together, right? Have your circle of support, and how many other foundations are out there that are also offering this type of support. Get in there if you aren't already, and start to lean on each other and share these tips and build each other up, because you will believe when you start seeing others succeed and you want it for them as much as you do for yourself.
Yeah.
That's the magic. And I fundamentally believe we can't do it alone. So that's why I'm honored to be here. And I just wanted to be able to share that.
Well, I think you're right about that too, because if you think about, maybe some people can do it alone, but it certainly helps to have encouragement and guidance and somebody believing in you and supporting you and encouraging you. And, when somebody does realize, like Angela is with us now. There's a story in my book about her, and she's got another one in the next book. But this was an eye-opening experience for me. It was in Monterrey, Mexico, and I'm OCD with numbers, for real. And so April 18th, 2018. And I was there for the first time out of like 8 trips. But that was the first time I'm 90-minute keynote speaker on the stage. And she was actually kind of like, she didn't think she's going to learn from me. Her husband dragged her there, Ernesto, and Sophie was with her beautiful daughter. We did a workout afterwards. So we're some people have heard the story. I'm sorry, but it's so inspiring because this is what happened. I didn't even know what workout I was going to do. I just was like, well, what's the biggest challenge? Well, for someone was rolling over in bed. First thing of the day. Imagine that. You wake up, you can't even roll over. So I said, okay, 55 people down on the floor on your backs, help down if you need help. I look over, she's over there and she's crying. And I'm just going to do something here because on Facebook, they can't see me. Not that it really matters that much, but she's up there and she's rolling and crying. And está bien. Oh, sí, muy bien, gracias, señor. I didn't know what was going on until there was a comment on Facebook later that night from her saying that's the first time she rolled over in 5 years without assistance.
Wow.
So I start crying, right? But she came in feeling defeated, hopeless, and actually she had by choice, she doesn't mind if I say it, I know, bedridden pretty much. So she hadn't really done anything. Well, that was a ripple effect. That affected her family, her circle of friends in a positive way. And then they're encouraging her. And then I was back 2 months later and, I threw in some Naboso insoles.
Nice.
She started running for the first time, and she used to be a marathoner 17 years. Now, I've seen this happen in many different places around the world. I've seen it happen here. But the whole point is, I think you're 99.9% of the time, I think you're right. We're not going to do this alone. I don't personally know anyone who does it alone, but that encouragement, it's so important to have support, encouragement, guidance.
Absolutely.
And then, it makes you and me feel really good too.
It does. It's cyclical.
I've cried a lot at workshops, I get really misty-eyed really easily because it's powerful. It's literally a life-changing before your very eyes. You've seen it. You see it. I see it. It's powerful. By the way, Mark in Toronto, nice comment here. Robin Hood, the movie, quote, "You are powerless if you believe you are powerless."
Ooh.
So belief is so important. Yes, Angeles is so great, Laura says. Yes. Mark, I'll send you the info on those, along with a little video. You are our life squad. Well, we are each other's life squad. Here, we're a team. All of us are part of the same family.
So warm coming into your webinars and your everything you've built, because it really is community driven. And this conversation you're having with all of us together right now, that's why it works.
Well, it's funny because I oftentimes feel that, honestly, I really think my brain is wired up different because this is true. I'm a very slow learner. I'm a terrible reader. I read a lot, but I do audiobooks. And if I really like a book, I get the book, and then I start to go through it with the audio and highlight stuff and go back and take notes. But there's something about my brain, I'm convinced, that's different than a lot of people in how I learn. And I really feel like I'm just starting to understand some of this now. I go around and teach and all this, but it seems like I've made things so complicated. But it doesn't have to be complicated. I do like the science. I do like the research. I like to explain it for those who like to have it explained. Some people don't care. So why bore them with it? It's a choice. They can tune in or tune out. And if they're my client, they don't want to hear it. All they want to do is move better. Fine. We'll get to that. We'll do it. And they don't need to know why sometimes. For those that do, I can explain it. But simple doesn't mean easy, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
I absolutely hear and resonate with what you're saying. I think as your own personal journey, we have to go through it ourselves before we can expect others to understand what we are asking or how we can give ourselves and actually relate. If we haven't gone through something ourselves to understand ourselves better, or in the process of that journey, I fully believe we're not ready to help everybody else, because you kind of have to be in that walk, don't you? And I think that's why you're so powerful, because you continue to be raw and vulnerable with everybody. No, it's true. If you're not, no one's No one's finished learning. Nobody is a finished product. And if they believe that, that's the wrong belief, isn't it? then there's no growth.
It means they don't have dopamine.
Yeah.
They don't have enough.
Right.
No, it's really interesting because this drives me, and I've been recently been learning that, and we'll talk about it more next Wednesday, not to take up time now, but it's not so
Right.
much how much dopamine is created for most of us, it's how much is active that's already there versus not active. And so what activate, yes, in Parkinson's it's diminished because it's less production because of what's happening, but dopamine is what drives me to do these webinars, because I know I'm going to come out learning, like tonight, writing a book, because I get to research. I
Mhm.
learn so much when I write. I learn so much when I teach, and I dopamine drives me to do that, and I can't get enough.
Exactly.
I guess that's my long-winded way of saying we're never a finished product. I agree, because if you are, you're done. You're all done.
And
If you arrive, you're
Yeah.
done. Forget about it. There's always
Exactly.
room to get better.
I feel like every time I've finished a Zoom class, a park workout, a private session, my brain is lit up. I am on this high because of that exchange that's happened. And not only what I've seen, but what I've received in that whole experience. And that's addicting. It's a positive addiction, but you're learning and you're growing with everybody. And it just feeds you into the next project. It compels you to take something further. And I don't know how you can feel like you're done. It's a constant yearn to go.
It would be sad if you actually ever arrived.
Oh man.
Right? I'd be like, oh no, life is done. It's been really good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you're over COVID. I know that you're definitely not as animated as you usually are, and I hear that, and I'm so impressed with how present you are tonight and able to do what you're doing. I don't know that I would have the same power.
I'm really tired, I'm really fatigued, and I'm really having a good time. So the choices are do this and enjoy it, or go take a nap. I'll do this. I'll take a nap. I can take a nap later. No, especially though, having you as a guest, this is an honor for me. So I appreciate your friendship and everything you do, your spirit, your heart, everything you do for people, because you make a big difference.
Thank you. I feel like I get a lot more than I give. It's just, you probably feel the same way, but it's just a blessing to be able to find something that you can do to help others. And once you start, you don't want to stop.
I know the feeling. So if there are any questions, we can do a quick question now. If you have time, you have like 3-4 minutes.
I'm on board.
So Mark, I am going to send you information on the insoles. Well, actually, I could talk about it now real quick. I worked for Dr. Emily Spickle for years. Technically, I'm still one of her instructors, even though I haven't been out teaching, but we've been in touch a lot lately and might do some stuff online. I don't know. But if you go to chapter, I think it's chapter 6 in my book, there's actually it's what I used to teach with Dr. Emily, and it had to do and I can actually send you all a playlist to my Emily Spickle. I have an Emily Spickle playlist. She's been a guest on the series so many times for interviews, but it explains how stimulating the plantar skin, which as we get older and we wear socks and shoes for more decades, a lot of those nerve endings, small mechano and sensory receptors, they start to go to sleep. They're not dead, they just go to sleep. So you're not getting, when you wear shoes and socks, and the more room there is between you and the ground and your plantar skin, meaning your plantar skin and the ground, the less information you're receiving as input. So what happens is if you take off the shoes and just do barefoot, and I was teaching for her before these insoles, right? But okay, so Robin has a question. We're going to come to that in a minute, Robin. And the question is, and you can answer in a second, Melissa, is if you're doing any online rock steady boxing classes. So we'll answer that in a second. So Mark and everyone, Angeles. Actually, she started running the day she put these in her shoes. And it's because we were in Parkinson, Monterrey, in Monterrey, Mexico. It's not a kind of place where you want to go barefoot necessarily, inside and outside, definitely. I mean, there's nothing wrong. It's just, you don't know what's out in the street, if there's like glass or little things, and you don't want to cut your feet. So what we do is trim these to size. Now, these are textured. The research and development on these was a lot of money. But I was there working with Emily years ago during the prototypes that came out. But this brand new one that just came out, getting them to Canada, Mark, might be a little costly, but I can work with you on that because there might be a distributor in Canada. I can't remember. I'll find out though. But the bottom line is these are a depth of 1 millimeter. If you look there, you can barely see, 1 millimeter deep. They're like little pyramids, and they're spaced in a way that optimize for most people a simulation of barefoot. You put them in with no socks in your shoes, trim them to size for your shoes. And by the way, they're called Nabo. So I have a stockpile here if anyone wants them. I wasn't planning on selling anything tonight, but if you want them, just shoot me an email to where you registered, and I can hook you up. They're $15 less if you get them from me, because they're $65 online. They're $50 through me. That includes shipping if it's in the United States. But they're a really good tool for taking the benefits of barefoot, putting it in your shoe, and going outside and being safe. So now your foot is on this rather than the ground, with a potential for injury somehow. Barefoot stimulation wakes up through the peripheral and central nervous systems, brain stem to the brain, just like that. And then your brain sends out a signal to help you stabilize better, move better. Angela started running. People started walking better. Their posture improves. Now, this is like 90-something% of the time. It's not 100%. Gosh, how did I get talking about this? Chapter 6 of the book, if you have the book, it's all explained in there because Emily and I wrote a piece for chapter 6, I think, about plantar skin stimulation and waking up the brain, and how that's a component, a thing you can do to help improve movement. We're getting more information to the brain. If you get more information, then you can have more output too, to tell your body what to do more accurately. I don't have it. There are no questions here other than, Melissa, do you do, like, for people who are not in your area, can they join your RSB classes?
The only concern with that is at some point we'll be returning to the gym and I won't be offering a full schedule of that anymore. So because I don't know the long term, I could say sure right now, but I don't know for how long we'll offer 5 or 6 days a week Zoom. So what you could do, I could give you my email address and we could exchange and see what you're looking for. And if it's compatible, sure. I'm not opposed to that at all. I think anybody within Carl's pipeline is certainly welcome because I know that you're in here to learn and to be a part of something. So.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. So if you want, then I'll include your email address in the body of the email I send tomorrow when I send out the recording of this, the YouTube link.
Yeah, I'm happy to connect and see if that's a good fit. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're set here, and I've had a great time.
Me too.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. Thank you. I mean, I'm blown away at just your confidence in me. It's wonderful to be able to have a comrade like you, basically, since we first met a few years ago, watching everything that has transpired, the success in your journey and all that you continue to do to teach. I want to jump in and take as many webinars that you're offering and as many, as many lectures as you're offering, because you're constantly bringing in fresh information. Your enthusiasm is just infectious. And so it's really an honor to be able to call you a friend and to be here too. So thank you.
I feel the same way towards you. Allison, Rustin, and I talked. We're recruiting you to be one of our instructors here. Just got to figure out how and when.
Well, you have such a crew. I just, Allison and Russ, now that I've gotten to talk to them a few times, met Allison in person and look forward to meeting Ruben. But he's great. Human beings, and it just makes you don't feel alone. Like, in other words, there's so many other people out there that have the same passions And when you start connecting that way, it's unbelievable what we can make happen.
It is. It is. And by the way, Mark says, thanks, you crazy kids. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much from Russ. Thank you,
Oh,
Cara,
thanks.
Melissa. What a fantastic webinar. Thank you, Miriam in Ireland.
Yeah, Miriam.
You're up
That's-
late. You're burning the 2 a.m. oil, I think. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off, and actually, I'm probably going to sleep real soon, but I'm so excited I may not get to sleep real soon. But thank you again. Thank you, everyone, and especially thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a great
All right.
evening.
You'll all hear from me tomorrow with an email and a link to the video, and have a fantastic rest of your day, night, wherever you are in the world.
Bye, guys.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.